I know my man's a gangster, but he ain't no West Coast gangster. You know what I'm saying?
Normally, after a big win, the commentator will make his way into the cage and ask the winner who he'd like to fight next. While some fighters take a more reserved approach in their response, usually saying that they'll fight anyone at any time, others like to make it very clear about who they'd like to face next. So, for this video, we'll be taking a look at a list of fighters who decided to take that golden opportunity and call out a particular opponent in their post-fight speech. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Now, without further ado, and ranked in no particular order, here's a list of some of the best call-outs in MMA. Number 10. Nick Diaz, UFC 137. When the former Strikeforce champion Nick Diaz transitioned over to the UFC in 2011, he was originally supposed to fight George St-Pierre in a champion vs champion super fight. But after failing to attend a mandatory press conference, he was instead slated to face BJ Penn at UFC 137. So, after he defeated BJ Penn in a dominant fashion, he proceeded to call out George St-Pierre in one of the most infamous call-outs in UFC history.
Nick Diaz by unanimous decision.
The call-out led to an eventual showdown between Diaz and GSP, as they went head-to-head at UFC 158, as GSP went on to win by unanimous decision. Number 9. Nate Diaz UFC on Fox 17. After a one-year layoff, Nate Diaz returned to the octagon to face off against fellow lightweight Michael Johnson. Diaz put on a masterful performance in his UFC return and fought his way to earn a unanimous decision win. Following the result of the fight, Nate decided to take this opportunity to call out the newly crowned featherweight champion Conor McGregor.
Yeah, Conor McGregor, you're taking everything I work for, mother. I'm gonna fight your. You know what's the real fight, what's the real money fight is me.
The interview was filled with so much profanity, Joe Rogan was forced to cut it short. But the infamous call-out fueled one of the biggest rivalries in the sport's history. So far, McGregor and Diaz have fought each other on two separate occasions. One in which Nate won by submission, and another that saw Conor earn a unanimous decision. Number 8. Khabib Nurmagomedov, UFC 205. In 2016, Khabib Nurmagomedov was originally supposed to fight Eddie Alvarez for the lightweight title at UFC 205. But when McGregor instead got the shot over him, this greatly upset Khabib. Instead, he was paired off against Michael Johnson in the prelims of UFC 205. Khabib easily won the fight and spoke to Dana White after his win, demanding a title shot. What came next was an intense call-out of Conor McGregor.
Irish, only 6 million. Russian, 150 million. I wanna fight with your chicken because this is #1 easy fight in lightweight division.
And although it took longer than expected, the two finally faced off 3 years later at UFC 229, with Khabib winning the fight by submission. Number 7. CHAEL Sonnen, UFC 136. In 2010, Chael Sonnen lost the biggest fight of his life when he was submitted by Anderson Silva in the final minutes of a fight he was dominating. Coming just inches away from capturing the middleweight belt left a bitter taste in Sonnen's mouth. So, naturally, he wanted a chance at revenge. After winning an impressive comeback fight against Brian Stann, he then proceeded to call out Anderson Silva for a rematch, offering him a challenge in the process.
Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck. I beat you. You leave the division. You beat me. I will leave the UFC forever.
The two were eventually paired off at UFC 148, but unfortunately, Sonnen lost the fight by TKO in round 2. Number 6. Colby Covington, UFC 225. Whether you like or dislike Colby Covington, he certainly has a knack for getting people to pay attention to him. And during the past few years, Colby made it clear he's been dying to get his hands on Tyron Woodley. But when the former welterweight champion Tyron Woodley was sidelined in 2008 due to a shoulder injury, the UFC decided to make a fight between Colby Covington and Rafael dos Anjos for the interim belt. So, when Covington defeated dos Anjos to win the interim title, he made his thoughts very clear on who he wanted to face next.
Tyron Woodley, you're a freaking coward! Why'd you let this little
Unfortunately, he is yet to face Tyron Woodley in the octagon, and given that Woodley recently lost his title back at UFC 235, a fight between the two is unlikely to happen anytime soon. Number 5. YOEL Romero, UFC 205. In 2016, YOEL Romero was quickly rising through the middleweight ranks, putting himself in a position to fight for a title. At the time, Romero was 7-0 in the UFC, finishing 5 of those opponents by knockout. So, after he knocked out the former champion Chris Weidman with a brutal flying knee, it catapulted him straight into title contention. Romero then went on to call out middleweight champion Michael Bisping in what was both a bizarre and terrifying post-fight speech.
I love you, Mike. I love you, Mike. You say something like this for me, and now I say you. I love you. See you soon, boy.
Unfortunately, a fight between Romero and Bisping never happened, after Bisping lost his title to Georges St-Pierre. Number 4. Max Holloway, UFC 206. Following a loss to Conor McGregor back in 2013, Max Holloway never lost at featherweight again. And after earning 9 straight victories, Holloway finally earned his shot at featherweight gold in an interim title fight against Anthony Pettis. Max went on to dominate the fight, finishing Pettis by TKO in the 3rd round. And in his post-fight speech, he proceeded to call out Jose Aldo for a title unification bout.
We couldn't fight Aldo, so I started calling him Waldo. Jose Waldo, hashtag Jose Waldo, and tell him meet me in Brooklyn in February. Let's get the real one.
And 6 months later, Max earned that shot as he defeated Aldo by TKO to become the new undisputed featherweight champion. Number 3. Daniel Cormier, UFC 226. In 2018, Daniel Cormier made his return to the heavyweight division, facing off for the heavyweight title against Stipe Miocic. Cormier came into the fight with the potential to become a 2-division champion, but in order to do that, he'd have to get through Stipe Miocic, who was someone widely considered to be the greatest heavyweight of all time. But not only did he win the fight, he did it in spectacular fashion, finishing Stipe by knockout in round 1. But rather than offer up a rematch for Miocic, he instead decided to call out former heavyweight champion Brock Lesnar.
I never thought I would fight him, but Brock Lesnar, get your ass in here!
Brock then proceeded to enter the octagon and shove Cormier, which led to a brief back and forth between the two men. Number 2. Tony Ferguson, UFC 216. In 2017, Tony Ferguson was widely looked upon as the next logical contender for the lightweight title. And with the timetable unknown for Conor's return, the UFC recognised that they needed to keep the division moving. So, in October of 2017, the UFC offered Tony Ferguson a shot at the interim lightweight title, facing him off against Kevin Lee, with the winner expected to face McGregor upon his return. After submitting Kevin Lee in the 2nd round to win the interim title, Ferguson turned his attention towards McGregor, expressing his desire to fight him in a title unification bout.
Where you at, McNuggets, you piece of I'm gonna kick your ass. You better come and defend that belt. Defend or vacate.
Unfortunately, the fight never came to be, and Tony was stripped just a few months later due to a severe knee injury. Number 1. Mickey Gall, UFC Fight Night 82. Mickey Gall is someone who has somewhat got a reputation for calling people out, but perhaps his most famous call-out was that of WWE superstar CM Punk. After dominating Mike Jackson in his UFC debut, Gall proceeded to call out CM Punk, who was someone who had never actually competed in MMA.
Talking about one guy, and I'm still thinking about one guy. I want to be fed, I'm hungry. Feed me CM Punk, please.
Although he had no prior fighting experience, CM Punk was eager to see how he would fare in the UFC. So when Mickey Gall called him out, this led to the two meeting in the octagon, but to the dismay of many CM Punk fans, predictably Mickey Gall completely ran through him, finishing him by submission in just round 1. Well, that's all we've got time for today, guys. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.
Never have a doubt, do you like me now? Am I good enough now? Should I get more loud till you hear the fucking sound? Oh no, I'm losing my shit again, having to fit again. Man, I'm forgetting when I used to have some friends. I used to play pretend, we all grow up and then hating my phone and trends. I'm about to blow my head, nobody knows I'm dead. Fear I'm a ghost instead, think that I'm close, I get straight comatose in bed. Try to go slow with breath, breathe out my nose and head. Heart doesn't go the trend, faster it goes.